My name is Sizani James Kasana. I'm 37 years of age and I am an author of this beautiful book, The Mask I Lived In. Together with BOOKHIVE, I would like to take this opportunity during this pandemic period and encourage you at home to take a book and get into a habit of reading. I'm going to be reading a couple of passages from this book. Please do stay tuned and enjoy. Opening the blue shutters of this little cottage one morning, right around the time when the sun was struggling to break through, and the birds were almost lethargic and obnoxious in their morning tweets. There were revelations about that morning. I call it the school of life. What happens when you cringe? When you are confronted with your personal truth. I haven't mentioned the fact that mornings are normally heavy, but that one particular morning required that a part of me no longer remained and that I survived. So straight to the mirror I walked up. I took a glimpse of myself, ran my fingers down my face. I felt numb. For the life of me, I couldn't acquaint myself with the reflection of the woman standing opposite me. The energy she radiated was cold and clouded. Weakened she was by virtue of her reality, eyes blurry, heart heavy. She looked miserable, worn out, hopeless, misplaced, unhappy, lonesome, and broken. Her physical attributes made it easier for me to familiarize myself with her, but her presence was very heavy. She was pain personified. She epitomized anger and bitterness. It had become a part of who she was. She wore her heart on her sleeves. I couldn't identify with her. I struggled to find the me in her, the parts that grew where nobody sees. I desperately wanted to reach out to her, but tapping into her center proved most difficult. She had built a protective wall around herself. I yearned to help pull someone out who was already in her own world. Her center, her power base, her name is me. Coming to grips with my personal truth, I had to succumb to my center, the most intimate parts of myself, and admit that I was broken and needed help. The most difficult task was taking responsibility for my own peace. There are times in life when the help you need has to come from within you, because if you aren't careful, you will mistaken codependency on the outside forces to uphold you as help. Codependency, masquerading as help, is crippling. It uplifts the burden but does very little to contribute towards your growth. It masks the scars but does very little to deal with the roots of the pain that needs to be plucked out. It just helps you feel more comfortable with placing some of the load on others and never fully take responsibility of the relationships that failed, the mess of the businesses, and how you could allow yourself to lose so much of yourself. And here I was, thrust into breaking through what the body politic had thus far made impervious to change, to sink or to swim. Something had to give in order for love to drip like molasses into the darkest pits of my being. Growing up is painful. That is why it's called growing pain. That morning, my soul had stretched and I groaned and mourned in agony. I looked at my soul's stretch marks, these stripes I had earned, but that morning I had to show up for myself. And for myself, I'd learned to swim. I was crippled. I was crippled by being set apart, strategically placed to disrupt the norm, making me an outcast in a society. I was rendered an outcast because the generic rules didn't apply to me. I was in bondage. Isolation hurts as much as allowing assimilation with my present surrounding hurt. My soul groaned and my soul moaned and groaned in agony. My immediate environment had me surrounded by pretentious engagement where people are gaining and I'm not necessarily gaining any direct returns from this interaction. On the other hand, customary churches maintain the tradition wherein congregants still attest to the goodness of the Lord. detailing how good God had been through attaining things of monetary value and sickness that being diagnosed and cured. However, what I found unorthodox was our inability to reflect humanity when given an opportunity to mount the platform. I am still appalled by our inability to tell our stories in a way that embodies the human spirit, and yet this tradition continues to dominate and foster the common lie of we are perfect. And the more we remove the human factor, the more we continue lying about that the human journey is all about. I'm going to jump to another passage of this book that I want to share with you as well. The title says Finding Me in You. There were revelations about that morning. I call it the school of life. The woman in front of me, the epitome of the mask I lived in, still struggling to find the me in her. That morning, everything that required a healing rushed to the surface. Instead of fighting my feelings and forcing myself to focus, I decided to allow myself to dive into waves of emotions. Everything that comes to show was collected one by one. I examined it all, the truth, the love, the pain. Each sensation was allowed to stretch, bend, and flow with me. And had I not taken a minute to breathe, to gather my thoughts, and pray, I would have done what I always did, hide behind my mask. So I had to be clear enough, grounded enough, and centered enough to say, how am I going to handle this time? But what do you do when the sins of your past are tearing you down? When you can no longer ignore the wounds you've in fact inflicted on yourself and no longer blind to see the scars you've endured? You have no choice but to feel. Suddenly everything was crystal clear. I was slapped with the reality that I was more broken than I thought and had become defensive over my broken pieces. I wanted to be the victim because I wasn't patient enough to see the stretch that could exist beyond the pain. When will you take ownership of yourself? When will you stop running from the realities of your past and trying to create a fictional future? When will you admit that you can't stop pretending to be whole long enough to see you're still bleeding? Your denial to heal your heart may blind you of your truth, but it won't protect you. It won't protect your world from your bitterness. Infections breathe infection. The last one that I'm going to read for you. Just a second. Please bear with me. Here. Everything that you have in you right now is a result of what you believe. God said, if you elevate your thinking, I'll do exceedingly abundantly above all. Because He that begins a good work in you will tell you that you cannot afford to play it safe. And the moment you open your eyes and choose to look within, you will see that you were made with survival skin. You will be an unstoppable force that unlocks dimensions in life only you and God can fully enjoy it and understand. This kind of awakening will make you act in crazy, beautiful ways that assures you that you are growing even though you are hurting. No one ever told me that tearing down walls these walls I love so much would be just as painful as the reason I had initially built them. But once I became honest with myself, the real one made it worth it. My only prayer is that you would stop setting for just anything and dare to perceive your soul, for God to widen your perspective, challenge your perceptions, and humbly bring yourself closer to Him. His grace is sufficient for all of us. Thank you very much. Take this moment and get a book and start reading. It will benefit you. Thank you very much.